Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and probably even good night for some of you. Wherever you're listening to us from, my name is Henry Githaiga. I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Carole Kimutai. Carole, introduce yourself.
Caroline is the digital editor at the Standard Group.
I am a continuity editor, come economic affairs editor at the Standard Group. And Carole, what are you looking at the moment?
I'm just seated by the window looking at how nice the weather has been. You know, it's been July. I came in with my puff jacket, but I can see it's very warm. But you know what? Look at that expressway.
Yeah, I mean, the expressway is something that everybody has been talking about from the day it was launched, but now it's turning around. It has come from this thing that we used to marvel at to something that is even leading to deaths.
Yes, I saw a story in one of the papers today about this guy who died. I mean, young guy with a wife who was expectant. I can't imagine the grief, but you know, just watching the clips of how his car was rammed, it must be very, very painful for this new infrastructure. But now it's become like a death trap.
Yeah, it's actually surprising because some of the statements that have come out is the ministry has come out and banned certain categories of vehicles. They are now introducing bumps on the expressway. Does this make it an expressway anymore?
I think Kenyans are just mannerless, first of all. You know, we drive the way we drive here in Kenya. But take me or take you or take somebody else to the US, to Europe, we will follow the traffic rules. But here you'll overlap, you will jump the red lights even if, you know, there's a cop there. We are just mannerless.
So is this a design flaw or a character flaw?
I think both, because first of all, we are very indisciplined. Let me not talk about how cops behave on the roads. That's a story for another day. But just look at how we drive. I mean, these days you have to sort of have defensive driving. If not cows, it is a boda rider, it is a matatu, it is just a pedestrian. I mean, a driver in Kenya these days is one of 1,000 ways to die.
Funny thing that you should mention that, things that are not allowed on the expressway. Cows, motorbikes, tuk-tuks, at one time public service vehicles, but then they were brought in, now they're back out.
Yes, I think, you know, we need to pay for that road, and they need more cars on that road. And if people can afford to pay and they're using the PSV, why not? But like we are saying, are matatu drivers the right people to drive on the expressway? Because not only are they endangering the lives of the people they are carrying, but they're also endangering the lives of other motorists on the expressway.
For me, I think matatu drivers is a funny conversation because at the end of the day, I always believe they make you misbehave. So a lot of people have decided, oh, I'm going to drive like a matatu driver because this is what is suddenly acceptable in Kenya. However, for me, I decided some time back that I'll always enjoy myself on the road. And because before that, I used to get to work angry almost on the daily because a matatu guy has cut in. He went off-road. He did this. He keeps bumping my car and hitting the back and telling me, songa, songa, boss. So I said, because I'm a religious person, I asked my pastor and he told me, is the problem the matatu driver or you? Because you know matatu drivers behave like this, so why should it affect your behavior? So I decided, okay, I'll be indifferent to them.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate because we are actually tolerating bad behavior. And this same driver, you take them to another country, take them to the US, to the UK, or to one of the EU countries, they will not drive like that because they know there are consequences to bad driving.
It's not necessarily tolerating them, it's deciding that they won't change your behavior. So I've had to accommodate matatus on the normal road.
Not accommodate, you are tolerating bad behavior.
Yeah, but what do I do? Do I behave like them? Or do I, you see, because there's a difference between you staying on your lane, yes, and being disciplined, and they can cut in and you'll be upset, and you following them outside the road. I'm not saying follow them outside the road. I'm saying I'll stay my lane and try as much as possible to keep driving on my lane. If they cut in, let them cut in. It won't affect me either way or the other. There's a difference between that and me saying, this is how Kenyans drive. I'm not saying this is how Kenyans drive. I'm just saying I'm going to keep my lane, keep my discipline and everything else, and let the chips fall where they may. without affecting me. I will not accommodate them in terms of following them, behaving like them. But I will not be involved in an accident because I just did let some matatu guy pass for 2 seconds.
But Githaiga, let's take these matatu drivers or PSV drivers. Let's call them out. So we have this driver called Anthony. Take this driver to the US. Do you think he'll drive the way he drives here?
No, he won't drive like that. And that's what I'm saying. It's a personal choice.
Why does he drive the way he drives here in Kenya and not the same way in the US? Because there are consequences. So as a society, we have not put consequences for bad driving. That's why you're seeing these Moja guys of the expressway are saying, hit a railing, you're charged this amount. Consequences have an impact on behavior. And for me, I support PSVs should not be on the expressway.
I think they should be allowed if they can behave, because what percentage of Kenyans actually can afford to drive to work? Even the guys who could afford to use the expressway, now because of the cost of living, suddenly cannot afford. So if there was a more convenient way, and I keep telling my friends that the reason why I drive to work, there is no convenient public transport. If there was convenient public transport, if I live, for example, myself, I live in Uthiru. If I could be assured that I can leave Uthiru and be in the office, which is standard group, within 1 hour or less, I'd never have to drive. But because I know that I'll get into a matatu, we'll make a stop every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes, and of course, most likely a police officer will stop us, take more time, or someone who says, okay, I will not tolerate these matatus, will get into an accident with them, most likely I'll be late for work. So I'll say, okay, let me drive myself to work. This is the thing I can control. But if public transport was reliable for me, I think this guy should be allowed on the expressway, but the standard for them being allowed on the expressway, there should be a driver's test for those guys allowed on the expressway, because it will allow more people to enjoy the expressway, get to work faster, save more money than we are doing at the moment.
I still think, you can't say that they should be tested, because the expressway is just a small part of the road transport you have in Nairobi. So are you saying that they behave well on the expressway, they behave badly off the expressway? For me, it is consequences, and we just have to agree. Public transport is a nightmare. Remember Michuki rules. They behaved. There was enforcement, there were consequences. After Michuki, we are back to the same old ways.
But that's the problem, isn't it?
Killing people, speeding,
The problem is we have sort of what, for lack of a better term, headmaster philosophy. If there is no one watching over you, the way you used to be caned, the discipline master is around, I won't behave this way. The minute the discipline master goes, you move away. I think it's a personal choice that everybody can make. And even the passengers in the matatu can make and say, no, I will not board this matatu if it behaves like this. And I think that's where we are failing, because that matatu is full of people who know the behavior of this driver could lead to their deaths, but they're like, okay, I'd rather be early for work. Would you rather be early for work or in a mortuary? Well, basically, they're choosing the mortuary and being early for work as preferred.
Remember, it is a behavior thing. And as a society, if we don't enforce good behavior, we are still going to have a lot more people dying on the roads. You are seeing how matatus, there was one on Wayaki Way. It's a matatu. The other one here on Mulolongo, it was going to Great Wall. It just came and, banged into people, and some people got injured. Fortunately, nobody died. So for me, I still think this matatu menace is something we need to discuss, because having these guys on the expressway.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate. The other accident on the expressway was not caused by a matatu. So it just means that it's a Kenyan mentality. We talk about matatu drivers, but we also want to drive like matatu drivers. How ironic is that?
Yes, I know. We are all in a hurry. We don't want to wake up early. You want to sleep a bit. But also remember, you've been in traffic. what do our waheshimiwas do? They drive
Siren,
on the wrong
yeah.
side of the road. So if I'm the taxpayer, I'm paying this government official, he's misbehaving on the road, why shouldn't I do the same?
I think this discussion can go on forever. So let's pivot maybe to something else, yeah? Let's talk about why do you use the expressway and how often?
I rarely use the expressway unless I am moving from one part of the city to the other. Fortunately, I live 15 minutes away from the office. I live near the bypass. So for me, it is just very convenient. I rarely get to use the expressway. Unless I'm going to Westlands, I'll use it. But for me, I would rather just leave early. I'm a early bird type of person. I hate staying in traffic and having high blood pressure.
On the inverse, I think I use the expressway on average 3 to 4 times a week. Not because I'm rich, but...
How much do you use per day? Let's calculate.
But it's one way, so
Yes.
180 shillings
Okay.
per day.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually did the math because I was trying to think about it. If I wanted to use it one way every day coming to work for 5 days a week for the work year, and I saw it was 48,000 shillings, and I was, yikes, I will use less of the expressway because 48,000, if anything, it will buy me a ticket to Mombasa or something. It's a holiday.
So this is a two-way.
No, that's a
48
one way.
48,000.
That's one way. That's
Okay.
actually one way at 180.
180.
Yes, and 180 is me restricting myself because I take the expressway from the beginning in Westlands, yeah, where it starts, Nairobi West. I come all the way to Capital Center. The ideal thing would be for me to exit at the bypass.
Yes.
But it will cost me 60 shillings more for that small distance, so it makes no sense for me to do that. But the reason I started using the expressway is I'm a father, and I prefer to take my child to school. My child is supposed to be in school by 8:30, and if I drop him to school by 8:30, 8:25, if I take the expressway, I'm always in the office by 9. So I'm paying for the time with my son. But on the days that the mother is taking care of him or taking him to school for one reason or the other, I use the bypass.
Okay. And have you done calculations of fuel plus the expressway? How much more is it costing you in your budget?
I think it ends up being a zero sum because if you do the math, 180 shillings times 10 days is about 1,800. Yeah. So for the 20 days in the month that I'd have to take it, that could be what we are talking about 4,600. That's a full tank before inflation, before this whole thing hit us, yeah. So I think it ended up being a zero sum game, whether I use the bypass or I use the expressway and pay. So most days I'd prefer to use the bypass. If for no other reason, it's scenic, it's more convenient for me. I don't have to drive at 180 or those high speeds that people prefer to drive on the expressway. It may be slightly longer. It's about, for me, it's 10 kilometers more. But because of the speed, then it ends up being almost the same as using the expressway. The 180 that I'm paying for the day basically ends up being the same. But I'd like to ask you something, what are some of the unique things you've noticed on the expressway that you think nobody else has noticed?
I think for me, when you drive, I started appreciating Nairobi skyline. When you drive down, you rarely get to see the buildings on top. I mean, the buildings look cleaner, the air is fresher, and it's just quiet. I have just picked that driving on normal roads is, one, the pollution we have. Noise pollution, air pollution. But the noise is just, is a lot. When you drive on top, you realize how quiet it is. And this is something we need to talk about, pollution on our roads. It has just occurred to me, yeah.
What I've noticed is actually 3 things. One, I don't like politicians, so I have to start with them. Noise cancellation next to Parliament. What I find ironic is there's noise cancellation where the chamber is, but where their offices are, where you and me would go and see them, no noise cancellation. So they don't mind noise if I go to see them in the office, but when they're in the chamber by themselves, they mind the noise. That doesn't add up, and it's more likely that the chamber is already too noisy that it doesn't need the noise cancellation. If anything, the traffic would add some ambience. Second thing I've noticed, as human beings, we talk about receding hairlines, the receding tree lines in Nairobi. There is hardly enough trees in Nairobi.
Environment, yeah.
Yeah. If you drive from Westlands.
They cut off all the trees.
Yeah, there are no trees in Nairobi. The city seems to have no lungs. That to me caught me aback. We need to do more about that.
And we need to talk about it and agree. I mean, there are also no green spaces in the city. And we are living in high-rise buildings. We have COVID and we have respiratory diseases now. I mean, I've just recovered from a long-time respiratory infection. Is there something that we are doing to ourselves?
Yeah, actually, I ask myself that question every day. Not just to ourselves, but to our children. Because as we live here, we may not notice these things. But we need to do something for the next generation. The final thing I noticed is, surprise, surprise, the Malibu stocks have a new patching ground. All those lampposts, once you pass the Haile Selassie mark, there's a lot of Malibu stocks just patched on the expressway.
Yeah, but they are supposed to come where there's garbage. Where is garbage?
That's what I don't understand. They're all patched there. And from the way they fly sometimes, I wonder if someone may not end up running into one.
Wow, interesting. Anyway, let's see what happens to the next few days. I know this week we had another incident. I'm just praying that the new laws will reduce, but it's quite unfortunate that all the solutions on road accidents in this country are about bumps.
Yes.
I mean, I've never heard anywhere in the world that solutions are bumps. For me, I still stand by my thoughts. We are just irresponsible, and there are no consequences to bad road behavior in Kenya. It's rather unfortunate, and I hope we can think about it and actually have consequences and have people more responsible on the roads. We shouldn't be dying on road accidents. I mean, there are so many other problems. Road accidents shouldn't be one of them.
Yeah, I think I'd like to close by saying the thing that worries me more is we think about fatalities, other than the people that have to live with the disfigurement, the impairment, and the challenges that are brought by road accidents. Conversation for another day. I think we should close it here. Random musings by two friends who happen to be editors.
Yes, a nice one, Henry, and enjoy your trip back home on the expressway if you're using it.
Bypass. Anytime.
Bye.
Bye.